time, distance, and cover. Got one. I sat through the depositions of the officers I'll talk about here at the very end on this lawsuit and what they did. And the big thing we came out for this is all the lawyers asked them all day long was, how much time did you use? Did you have distance from the person, and were you using cover? And the reason why they're doing this is our old standards of training, we're supposed to do this. I go back to our medical director who actually had stuff in his PowerPoint that he did back in 2006 off of medical examiners, and they were talking about time, distance, and cover. It is new keywords. You want to teach your officers about when they get in a confrontation that they take their defensive tactics, and once they get control of the environment where they can get it stopped to where they can function, they need to make sure that they get time on their side and have all the time in the world. They gain distance because distance gives you time, and you get behind hard cover. And for all you officers in this room, go out and run scenario training. Sam talked about scenario training. I'm a huge advocate of scenario training. When we do our 40-hour class, we dedicate 2 full days to scenario training. I run the officers through a minimum of 16 or 17 scenarios. And we employ this, and when we employ it, we build in practices. Officers behind cover. If I take you as a citizen out here and I can run you through police scenarios, and you guys will have a lot of fun because we'll be laughing because you'll make lots of mistakes. You'll make us look really, really good. And so then, but if I take the officers out there, I can take that veteran officer back there, I expose him with no cover, he's going to respond to a stimulus one way. I give him a little distance and put him behind cover, and he responds differently. I don't train him. I don't have to do anything. There's a lot of things about cover and distance that changes the way that person processes and acts. And every time I train my class, I get that reinforced. And so we really work hard on bringing those concepts into our scenario training for crisis intervention, and we add de-escalation. Because once I get my safety, now I can communicate. Again, go home, stand before your significant other, get about 3 feet away from them, and ask them where the heck dinner is. And you'll have the confrontation. Get distance away from them where you feel safe. Use your I message saying, boy, I am really famished and I had a long day at work today. I was at this conference and I was unable to get myself anything to eat. Honey, by chance, did you make some dinner and is dinner ready, or is there something I can help you with to have dinner? And you're going to get a completely different response the second way. But I have to be prepared. I have to be in a safe place to communicate, because where's the doc? The doc talked about being the pituitary gland and going down to the amygdala. We teach our officers you have to function in your frontal lobe, not down in your amygdala. So if I'm startled and I'm exposed, I'm in a life and death response. I'm doing what Mr. Walsh did in Vietnam. I'm addressing that threat with a weapon. I'm behind cover. I feel I have time on my side. I'm processing and thinking in my frontal lobe, which is the intelligent part of my brain. And that's where I want to teach the officers to be so they can function. Because the police officers in your community, the officers in the back of this room, are competent, capable, intelligent individuals. And we've got to help them get themselves in the right place so they can use their capabilities to perform better. And that's what we're working on to do. So let me ask you a question. When a police officer answers a 911 call, how many crisis events does he go to? How many crises are occurring at that location that he's going to? I got 1. Anybody got, I got 2. I got 3. Can you tell me who the 2 would be, ma'am? Yourself. And you would be the? And she's absolutely correct. Everybody in this room, and we process this and we have to do things. This is the stuff I've learned as a law enforcement officer that we in law enforcement have failed to go out and work and communicate and understand. You have a child with mental illness, ma'am? Yes. So, man, I made a good assumption, didn't I? Yay. So she understood the question, because you know what? She has a son, 21 years. Did I hear that correctly?
He's 29. He's diagnosed when he was almost 5.
Oh. That's 24 years. So she has this time experience where she's been dealing with her child. Do I get called to her house when she's in control of her son, or when her son's acting correctly? Do you think she's able to handle most of the crisis events herself? Absolutely. When she calls 911 is when she's no longer able to handle that crisis. And that signifies that she is now in crisis. So when we go out there and answer these calls, you're not dealing with one crisis. We got to remember we're going to be dealing with the family member that's crisis. And I'm going to talk a little bit about a shooting we had in Dallas, and it was very evident that that mother was in crisis and was overwhelmed at that given time. And that didn't in itself lead to the shooting, but it's part of what occurred about that shooting. Ma'am, you raised your hand and you said 3. Why did you say 3? She is absolutely correct. For those of you that didn't hear her, it can be the first responder. And I'm going to sit there and go and say this is not absolutely a truth. But when we find incidences where officers make major mistakes, the officer is clearly in crisis. And so all the training that we're going back and we're trying to work on is how do I keep that officer functioning out of a crisis mode. Again, I want him in the frontal lobe and keep him out of the inner, back into the old basic brain where you have fight or flight. Because when he goes in crisis, that's when we have the major problem. Mr. Chase, the officer Chase I told you about, he clearly went into crisis. Got overwhelmed. They should have been calling for cover, should have gained distance. In those days, you'd have been bad police. That was bad policing back then. Today, if you don't train your officers that they need to get the right place and do the right things to save themselves so they go home to their families, please come see me. I'll work with. I can't understand that. My job is to make sure every single officer goes home every single day. And I train that by that means if I have to regroup and come over here and get my friend to come over and join me, because that'll make the proper response, I'm going to do that. And you're absolutely correct, ma'am. I want everyone to think about it. All you law enforcement officers, you need to make sure that your officers know when they go out here, they're going out to multiple events. And that's important about how we then get people to come up and do communication with officers. Everybody in this room, if you know what NAMI is, contact your local NAMI. I believe I sent it to, Mr. Walsh, Ms. Laird, did I give you the 911 checklist? I did. If you don't and you can't find it, you guys got it. I've got it on NAMI Dallas website. You Google, you get over there and you put on there in the search box and go 911 checklist. It'll come up with a checklist. You can take it, you can alter it, you can change it as a Word document. We don't have it locked down. You guys have fun with that thing. What's important for me as a law enforcement officer is people don't know how to call 911. More importantly, how many people in here react the way they expect to react when they're in crisis? And the answer is that you all got that question absolutely correct. That's a 100% correct answer. I know I don't. I'm a well-trained police officer, and when I get stimulated and everything you're doing, if they run me, I am the lead instructor. I am supposed to be the guru from Dallas Police Department regarding mental health, and you put me through a mental health scenario training, and I guarantee you there will be critiques about how I could have done it better. Because everybody under pressure makes mistakes. I want to keep those mistakes to being small and minimum. So when I give a 911 checklist, I want to be able to have people to practice and learn how to call the police. So she says she has 25 years of dealing with a child with mental illness, and she imagine, based on your reaction, I got a feeling you've called 911 before. And if she calls 911, I don't want her calling, my son's in crisis, I need the police. Click. Good job, ma'am. But law enforcement, you all know in this room, that's what we get all day long. And we show up there, and we don't know who we're dealing with, we don't know what they look like, and we don't know how agitated they are, and we don't know they have weapons. And then we get closer than we want to be, and they produce a weapon, and then we have a fatal encounter. So I'm all for that we need to train law enforcement officers. But in my training, we also need to go back and teach on the other side of the street. Because realistically, folks, everyone in this room that's not a police officer, if you're dialing 911, you are the first person that is going to help us have a positive, safe outcome in an encounter with a person in a crisis. Especially that's being driven by mental illness, and you tell us what are triggers and what are things that arouse us. Because if someone goes, the person thinks they see the devil, if I'm an educated police officer, I know when I show up, even though I'm in a squad car, in a marked squad car in a uniform, that person probably sees me as the devil. And if that person has a knife, what are they going to do when the devil approaches them? They're going to defend themselves. So if I go back to my distance thing where I teach people to stay away from them and stay behind cover, have I just pretty much eliminated the likelihood of a fatal encounter? Because back in the old days, that incident in Memphis, it happened in Dallas, it happened all over the place. We as police officers weren't trained right. We got too close to the individual defended himself, the officers defended himself, and we had a fatal encounter. We have to teach differently to do this. So please, make sure that you understand and look about how we do this stuff. Make sure you have weapons. Tell us what this mood of this person is in the past. Tell us about all these things that are going on with these people. Because this is a pen, correct? Right? Would anybody like to have me demonstrate how it's a weapon? So it's really simple. I can talk loud, but it's really, really simple. Because all I have to do, this is a pen, right, man? This is a, she's got a thing, but she did a really good job of reaction. Usually if you come up like this, I can see she didn't hear. She knows what I'm doing. Did she react to me? She did, absolutely. If you didn't see her, she completely reacted to this pen became a weapon. Because I changed the way I held it, and it became an instrument that struck to hit somebody. That is what is important. In law enforcement, we don't make sure our dispatchers are asking all those important questions. Do they have a weapon? No, they don't have a gun. Do they have anything that might be changed and utilized as a weapon? Obviously, I've heard fatal shootings on golf clubs, brooms, screwdrivers. Is everyone getting the picture here? And then we have this aggressive behavior. So we need to make sure we have all these different communications about working this stuff. And now let me tell you something I learned. I went through crisis intervention training. I got certified and went through all these different people, and I learned what we learned in crisis intervention training, and I am not taking anything away from crisis intervention training. The smartest thing I did is I have family members with mental illness. I got introduced to NAMI, and I became a member of NAMI, and I took their education programs. And in their education programs, they taught me some information that was still lacking in our training. It's there, but they don't do it as well as NAMI did. And I learned from NAMI about how we need to work on this. And it's giving power and using boundaries. If you're a family-to-family teacher, you should know this fairly well. And this is very simple. How many people in here have adult children? How many of you have tried to tell your adult children what to do in their life?